cup at a time. Yeah, this is tea time. Yeah, making a difference. One cup at a time. Tea time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time. Making a difference. One cup at a time. Tea time. Yeah. Tea time.
Well, good evening and welcome to Tea Time. That's right, we are back for Tea Time. We are here for the evening Tea Time. This afternoon Tea Time was rescheduled for a later date, so check and stay tuned for that. So we're going to get right into it because we're going to do some deep sea fishing. We're going to talk about some fish. We're going to talk about some ocean waters. We're going to talk about all that good stuff. So let's get into the disclaimer, and then I'm going to get Bob Gonzalez to join me to share about his incredible book called A Flicker in the Water. So get ready, get prepared, because we're going to put the hook in the water and we're going to do some fishing tonight. So the disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz, myself, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith, however, may bring forth dialogue and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussion for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It is significant to know that this show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in tonight's show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. And should you decide that the show is not made for you at this time, I'll see you at a later show, at a later date, at a later time. And again, all tea times are on Thursday unless it's a rescheduled tea time. So now let me get Bob Gonzalez in here. But before we get him in here, we're just going to do a little quick bio intro, and then we're going to get him in. We're going to put some hooks in the water, and we're going to talk some good old fish tonight. Bob was born in New York City and raised in Northeastern Pennsylvania, where the most popular outdoor sports was whitetail deer hunting. Maybe he will write about those stories in a future book. He now lives in Florida, where he still enjoys sports of all kinds. Hopefully one day soon he will get to see the Tampa Bay Rays win the World Series. But for now, he will keep himself busy pursuing, then writing about landing the big ones. And we're going to talk about a flicker in the water. So let's grab Bob and get him in here. So welcome, Bob.
Hello, Liz. How are you?
I am good, and it is an honor to have you tonight. So let's just get right into it. Let's just put that hook in the water and let's get to the fish.
Okay.
So a little bit about the book and why you wrote the book, Bob.
Well, I've always loved deep sea fishing from the time I was a little kid. I started out freshwater catching, bluegills and bass and sunnies. And I started doing saltwater fishing when I was about 9 or 10. And I didn't do it all the time. I did it maybe once or twice a year in the summer times in New Jersey. It's when I moved to Florida in my 20s when I really started doing it a lot. And something, it's a passion of mine. I really love it. And I decided after 15 years, I had an accumulation of stories I wanted to share. And that's what led to the book.
So you're a storyteller with fish.
Well, I guess you could say that. The fish tell their own stories. I just help them.
Fish tells the wrong story.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you first started fishing, Bob?
I was probably like 7 or 8 years old in New Jersey. I used to fish in like ponds and lakes and things like that.
So what do you like about fishing?
What do I like about it? Oh man, the thrill, the adrenaline rush, the excitement that you feel when you get that bite on the line. You know, there's nothing like it.
So what's the difference between regular fishing and ocean deep sea fishing?
Well, in the deep sea fishing, you have to be much more aware of the elements, the waves and the tides and the winds. And, the ocean can be a pretty rough, scary place sometimes. So you have to make sure that, you're aware of the weather forecasts and which way the wind is blowing on a particular day, the speed, that kind of thing. And in the lakes, you don't have to worry about that quite as much because usually you're closer to shore in a lake. So, and there's no tides and currents in the lake, so you can get home right away if the weather gets rough.
So if the waves are really rough, Bob, is it good to go fishing?
Well, you don't want to be out there when it's too rough because it's not good for fishing and it's not good for your safety even at times. And I tell a couple of stories like that in the book. There's one story in the book about one of my fishing companions who was going to take a boat around the Panama Canal, and he got caught in some rough weather in Florida between Cuba and Key West in that area. And he's lucky he made it out of there alive without sinking. He had to get diverted to a port in Cancun, Mexico. I do share the funny part about the story is though when after a night when he almost lost his life, the boat was loaded with cases of beer they had on board, and when he got to Mexico, he was so happy just to get there, and he was dying to tell everybody, "Look, I'm alive. We made it." This and the authorities in Mexico, they didn't really want to hear that. They just confiscated all the beer.
They're like, "We don't care if you made it. We want the beer."
Yeah.
So what has been one of your wildest fishing adventures?
Well, I've been caught in some rough weather a couple of times, and once you're back at home safely, they're fun to talk about. But when you're out there, it can be a little bit scary at times. One time we got caught we were out there and we were fishing, and it was beautiful that day. The day started out, after flat seas and low wind, and then about midday you would get these swells like within a minute of each other. Then the next swell would come a minute later, and then 45 seconds apart, then 30 seconds apart. And we were thinking, maybe we ought to start heading back. So we started heading back, and we got caught in some really rough weather. So we had like a 3-hour ride back. It's called my 3-hour Gilligan's Island tour. We did make it back though.
Good old Gilligan Island, right?
Yeah.
We need more shows like that.
Yeah.
So what was the reason behind writing this book?
I just wanted to share the stories that I had. I just thought that people would find them interesting. I tried to make it educational enough so people who were experienced fishermen could enjoy it, but I also wanted people who may never have been out on the ocean and kids to learn from the book. And hopefully I was able to do that.
So what did you learn about writing this book?
What did I learn? That writing, I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing the stories come to life. I enjoyed reliving all those adventures and getting them down on paper. They're one thing when they're in your mind, but when you see them come to life on the page, it's an extra special feeling.
We have a question here. So why the title, A Flicker in the Water?
A Flicker in the Water. Okay. A Flicker in the Water was inspired by a battle we had with the yellowfin tuna We drove 8 hours to get to our fishing destination in Louisiana, where they have a bunch of oil rigs offshore. And when we got there, there were lots and lots, hundreds, if not thousands of tunas around these oil rigs. And for a while there, they didn't even seem to notice that we were there. They didn't bite. They didn't do anything. And then around 2:00 in the morning, one of them just took the bait and ran. He took that line. And I tell the story, we saw that tuna on the way. It took us about more than an hour, a couple of hours to get him back into the boat. And as we were bringing him in, we saw his body shape in the water. And I thought, wow, that's a flicker in the water. And that's where the title comes from.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Here I thought it was the name of a fish.
Yeah.
Like I was saying in the background before we started is there actually a fish with that little light bulb with the stick,
Yeah.
So where did you get the image for your book?
I searched all over the place for this thing. I Pixabay, who has images of all kinds. They've got photographs for public use. And I saw this picture and immediately I knew this is the one I wanted for my cover. And so I went searching high and low everywhere I could find to see where that picture came from. I searched aquariums, I searched marinas and seaports and everything. And then finally, I almost gave up. And then finally I said, you know what, let me try something else. So I tried I was able to locate it to an aquarium in the Netherlands. I guess I had been busy trying to find it here in the US, but it was in an aquarium in the Netherlands. And it was by a European artist who designed that fish. And that's how I was able to get it.
See, I thought that was like an actual fish you caught, like that was on the book cover.
Oh, no, I wish. No, he came from an aquarium.
So what size of fish is that?
That's a Goliath grouper, and those are by far the biggest groupers in the grouper family. And they could grow anywhere between 700 to 1,000 pounds.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's like catching a moose.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big fish.
Yeah, they were endangered for a while here in South Florida, but now they've made a nice comeback, and they're pretty plentiful. So, and they're not really a deep water grouper either. You can catch a lot of them around bridges in less than 100 feet of water. But you have to have some strong tackle though to bring them up.
So, can you eat that fish?
Well, I think you can. Most groupers you can read. Most of them are really, really good. Here where I used to fish, we caught a lot of gag groupers and copperbelly groupers and snowy groupers and red groupers. And
I'm going to be looking at groupers now.
Yeah. They're not the prettiest looking fish, but boy, they're really good. They're good to eat though. They're really tasty on the table.
Yeah, they're not the prettiest fish.
Yeah. Yeah, you could fit your head in their mouths too.
They look pretty wicked. Like some of the images that I found online, I was like, "Ooh, that looks like a vicious fish."
Yeah, no, they're not too vicious. They're pretty much hang down at the bottom, and they're in little caves and little holes and stuff, and they wait for their fish to swim by, and then they come out and grab them. So that's why when you're fishing for them, when you do get a bite of one, you want to start cranking like crazy because you want to pull them off that bottom. If you allow them to get back into their hole, chances are you can't pull them out of this. So you'll have to cut your line and try again. So
we have another question here for you, Bob. What type of rod do you use to catch a fish like that?
Well, we used to use what they call the 9-aught. It was like a pen reel. And we would put they have 3-aught, 6-aught, and 9-aught. 9-aught is the biggest one for the bottom cranking. And that's what we used to use. Some people use electric reels. I've never done it that way. I like that live feel of the fish even though it's hard sometimes. Yeah.
Like that's a big fish.
Yeah, but it's a lot of fun when you have them right in your hands.
So we have a question here. What's the biggest fish you've caught, Bob?
We've caught some blue marlin, 500-600 pounds. We caught a swordfish one time, about 400 pounds. They're probably the biggest ones that we've caught. We had one on the line one time that I talk about in the book that may have been over 1,000 pounds, but we didn't land that one. He came off, kind of quickly. He took the bait and ran, and then he was gone. But boy, he sure left an impression on me.
That's a big fish. So
Yeah.
that's not like a 5-minute reel in there.
Oh,
That's like,
no. So sometimes that might take you a couple of hours. Sometimes it might take up to 7, 8 hours to reel a fish like that in.
oh wow,
Yeah, you
that's a
get in
real
what
workout.
they call the fighting chair, and you have a harness on, and the rod is strapped to your harness, and you just keep working that fish. But when you're out there working a fish like that, 7 hours feels like 5 minutes. It goes quick.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would have never thought 7 hours to catch a fish.
Oh yeah.
So have you ever lost a fish
Oh yeah, that
as
one
you're bringing
marlin that
it
I
in?
just said. We lost a bunch of them. Another fish that I talk about in the book was 100-pound wahoo one time that I brought all the way to the boat, and they kept trying to gaff it and gaff it and gaff it, and they kept missing. And I'm thinking, man, just stick them. And they missed it, and the fish slipped the hook, and we didn't land that one. And that happens, though. All fishermen have tales like that.
So do you do anything besides fishing? Do you do hunting?
I used to do a lot of hunting in Pennsylvania when I lived there. Whitetail deer hunting was the main sport outdoors. I used to do that a lot. Down here in Florida, they have it, but I haven't done it nearly as much.
So you're in Pennsylvania, right?
No, I'm in Florida now. I grew
Florida.
up in Pennsylvania, yeah, but I'm in Florida now. Yeah.
So when you wrote this book, how long did it take you to write it?
It took about a year.
Oh.
Yeah, it takes a long time. If you want to do it right, I think the best thing for any writer, take your time. Even if you have to go over it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times until you get it the way you want it. That means the sentence structures, the things you want to say, the words you want to use. If you rush it out there too quickly, I know it's awfully hard to hold back. You just want to get it out there. But patience when you're writing, I think in the long run, it was a big benefit.
So when you had a special person write your foreword in the book, do you want to share a little bit on who wrote the foreword?
Yeah, Mariel Hemingway wrote the foreword for my book, and I was so grateful for her to having done that. My father grew up in Cuba, where The Old Man and the Sea, her grandfather's book by Ernest Hemingway, was written. And he was only, 10, 11 years old at the time. So I think she and us, we felt a connection because of that. And she really enjoyed the book. And she said the book spoke to her with a great sense of appreciation, which means a lot to me coming from her.
And if you want to hear that, you can hear that on your YouTube channel as well, right?
Yeah. She posted a video for it there also. Yeah, that was very nice of her.
So have you guys stayed connected since the book's come out?
Yeah, she actually let me join her book club. She endorsed my book for the Mariel Hemingway Book Club.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I gave that a follow yesterday.
Oh, good. Yeah.
There's a lot of incredible books there. For anyone.
Actually, her father, Ernest was her grandfather. Her father, Jack, was fish commissioner for the state of Idaho for a bunch of years, and he was a fly fisherman. He used to love fishing fly in the freshwater streams, and that's where she learned to fish from him.
Oh, so she's a fisher too.
Oh yeah. The Hemingway family's been fishing for generations. Yeah.
And she also acts, correct?
She used to act. She got nominated, I think, for a couple of Academy Awards, I think. She's not acting as much these days. She has a blog and a podcast where she deals with mental health struggles. She tries to help people who are suffering from depression and that sort of thing. So I think that's where her main focus is these days.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So what can people learn about ocean fishing?
Well, the oceans are a spiritual thing for me. And I think they probably are for most people because man came from the sea, and 2/3 of our planet is the ocean. So the ocean has a deep spiritual connection, I think, that people can make to it.
So do you think that this book would be good for schools, like for a fishing class, like a field trip?
I think it would be great. I'm trying to pitch that to some schools at the moment. Hopefully, they'll have me there.
So are you speaking anywhere, Bob?
I've done a couple of speaking at my local library. I've done a couple of talks. I've had some book signings at local bookstores, Barnes and Noble. I'm trying to see if a Gulfarium, a local aquarium here, will let me do the same. I think it'd be tremendous for their visitors.
Well, I think getting into the aquariums anywhere would be cool.
It would be fantastic. I'm trying. I'm gonna do what I can.
Well, for all the listeners out there, if you have an aquarium, reach out to Bob.
Yeah.
So, what was one of your favorite stories writing in the book? Like, what chapter is the best?
I love them all, to tell you the truth. There's a story in there about an amberjack that we caught that I had a special nickname for him. I called him Marble Eye.
Oh.
Yeah, because Marble Eye was an old fish. We didn't know he was what we had on the line until he finally reached the surface. We just knew that we had a big fish on there, and he after like fighting this fish for like an hour, these bubbles started to come up, and all of a sudden this big whoosh up in the water comes up, and belly up he came, and it was an amberjack, and we thought it was grouper, maybe a tuna, we didn't know, and he came up, and when we brought him into the boat, he had his one eye looked like a blue marble. It had no pupil.
Oh.
And so I named him Marble Eye.
Oh, that's where that saying comes from on your website. You have it on your website.
Yeah.
That I found. Marble Eye was an old fish, but old man did Marble Eye put up a good fight.
Yeah, he certainly did.
So how long did that one take to catch?
That one took about 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh, that's
and yeah, you could tell he was old, though. His skin was wrinkled, and he just looked like he had an old face, and his eye, like I said, he was blind in one eye. So it was time,
So have you ever catch and release, or do you keep everything?
Yeah, we released a lot of fish. Well, there are laws too. You can only, depending on the type of fish that you catch, you can keep them only at a certain size and only a limit of how many. When we were fishing with red snappers, we used to be able to catch them like 5 a piece. Now they're only allowed like two a piece. Yeah. And we used to catch them all year round. Now they're only open for like 4 or 5 weeks a year, which is good for the fish. They get to grow and they get to multiply, and you don't want to overfish them.
Well, I think having good education too on the fishes too.
Yeah.
Like, where would you find any information like that on the fish? Like, what's going extinct and the limits that you can catch? Like, is there a place that we can find that?
Well, the state regulations, each state has their own regulations. For Florida, they're actually state regulations and then federal regulations. And the state waters go out 9 miles, and after 9 miles, they become federal waters. Oh. But so at certain times of the year, you can catch fish in the state water, but not in the federal water, and vice versa. So that sort of thing. And they have websites, just, if you Google regulations for Florida, and then they list all the fish and when you can catch them and what size they have to be.
So you were saying, Bob, that you want to try and get into the schools. So to get into the schools, what would you bring to the table? Fish?
Well, yeah. Well, I don't know if I would cook them right then and there. Maybe we could have a barbecue afterwards. Actually, I think what I would bring is a lot of the knowledge that I accumulated in my 20 years out there. And there were actually things that I learned while writing the book that I didn't know, even when I was doing all that fishing. I'll give you one example. The loop current, which I knew existed because we used to fish the loop current, but I didn't know the loop current comes up from the Caribbean, and it's about 150 miles wide, and it's about 5,000 feet deep, and it's warm water, and it moves like constantly about 6 miles an hour up the Gulf, and sometimes, what it always does, it always wraps around between Cuba and Key West, and then connects with the Gulf Stream and heads north up the Atlantic coast. What it does do, though, is that sometimes it barely enters the Gulf before making that turn between Cuba and Key West. And then other times it pushes all the way up to Louisiana and Florida before wrapping around. So I noticed that this year the water was particularly light colored and clear. And it was because that Gulf current, that loop current, was pushed all the way up, only about 70 miles offshore of the Florida coast, and that was bringing a lot of clear, warm water into the area, and that usually holds fish, marlin and dolphin and wahoos and things like that. They like that clear, deep ocean water. And the movement of the current too, they like, because that usually churns up a lot of bait fish, so they get to feed on that. But yeah, that was one of the things that I learned. I didn't know that it was so vast like that, and I didn't know that it connected with the Gulf Stream either. I thought it just stayed in the Gulf, but it doesn't. And then another thing that I learned was that it has offshoots that shoot off the main loop, and then they form their own little currents. And those little currents, they last up to about a year sometimes. And some of them have a clockwise motion and some counterclockwise. And the clockwise motion are warm water. The counterclockwise are cold water, which I didn't know that either. Yeah, and then they usually, they'll run into the coast of Mexico or Texas, and before they dissipate. But they last on their own, for 12 to 18 months, which really surprised me.
So counterclockwise is cold water or hot water?
Yeah. Well, let me reference the book here real quick if you have a second.
Yep. Well, we got all night. We're the hook's in the water still.
Okay. Yeah.
We're waiting for the big catch here.
Yeah. In fact, I'll show you the diagram here in a second. I purposely hand drew this one so that people could get a good idea. Okay. See, this is what the currents look like. Well, first of all, this one here. That's the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico. That's what it looks like from a satellite. And then the other one is the hand-drawn currents. You see the little.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Yeah, where it says Gulf Loop current, and then it has those little offshoots. Let's see what it says here. Warm water is clockwise. Yeah, cold water is counterclockwise.
So clockwise is warm water.
Yeah.
So we have a question here for you, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
What fish are in the warm water and what fish are in the cold water?
Well, that's a good question. The Gulf of Mexico, when they say cold water, I mean, it's relative. I don't think it's like frigid water like you would see in Alaska or anything like that. But the warm water fish are the wahoos and the dolphins and the marlin and the swordfish. They all like the warm water. And they probably pass through some of those cold water currents as well. But some of the bottom fish, they could take the differences in the temperature, like the snappers and the groupers.
Well, that's good to know. So
Yeah.
different current, different temperature, you get
Yeah.
different fish.
Oh yeah, yeah, and not only because sometimes the temperature at the surface may be different than the temperature a couple 100 feet deep.
So in the color of the water, does that have anything to do with the certain fish in the area too?
Yeah, the wahoos and dolphins and marlins and things like that, like clear water. They usually, when the water is nice and clear and doesn't have a lot of sediments in it, you usually can find fish like that. There's other fish like the mackerels, the king mackerels. They like more murky water. Catfish like more murky water. I think they're probably more protected in water like that.
Yeah, I know about the catfish because I went fishing with my grandpa with catfish.
Yeah.
And pickerel and pike and
yeah.
I haven't fished since I was, I think, 15. Is the last time I went fishing? Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I was one of those talkers on the boat. My grandpa was always like, shh.
Yeah. Okay. You want to hear something? I know you're in Canada, in Ontario, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You want to hear? How far are you from Nova Scotia?
I think I'm about 12 hours from Nova Scotia. I'm on the St. Lawrence River.
Okay. In Nova Scotia, because of the Gulf Stream, so it's so close that you would never think that palm trees are able to grow in Nova Scotia, but they do. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. That's amazing.
My goodness, I'm going to have to go to Nova Scotia to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, they have palm trees right on the coast there because of the warmth of the Gulf Stream blows in that air and makes it warm enough for the palm trees to grow. How incredible is that?
So have you been to Nova Scotia?
No, I haven't. I'd love to go, though. I haven't been, no.
So have you been to anywhere in Canada?
No, I don't think I've ever been to Canada. Maybe one day.
Well, you have to come and check out the St. Lawrence River here.
Okay.
We're right on the border. So Cornwall's on one side and New York's on the other side. So
Yeah. Have you been to Niagara Falls?
I've been there, I think 7 times.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Hmm.
not the first few times was nice. After that, it was like, okay, I've seen this already.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, any intentions of writing a second book?
Yeah, I'd like to do a second book. I have some ideas. Maybe I was thinking of making like a combination of the regular sports that we're all used to, baseball, football, that sort of thing, and maybe some comedy, because I enjoy comedy. So maybe I'll write some comedic things.
Well, we need a little bit of comedy in our life. Because
Yeah,
when I asked you to give me a one word for yourself, you were like awesome, and then you're like, no, okay, persistent.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm gonna go with the 2 words. So why those 2 words?
Well, persistent was because when you're fishing, and I think this applies to anything in life. When you're persistent, if you give up too easily, you can't get your just rewards. But if you persist through the pain, and this goes for fishing a lot because the fish don't always bite, and things aren't always going to go your way. And that's true in life too. So if you persist and can fight through that inclination to, turn away or give up or not continue, I think if you persist through the pain, you'll be rewarded. So that's where that one came from. And awesome because life is awesome.
I think we need to say that word more
Yeah.
often, right? Awesome.
Uh,
Everything is awesome. Because when you
yeah.
say the word awesome, you can't say it without a smile. Like
Yeah.
I've tried to say the word awesome without smiling, and you got to smile when you say awesome.
Yeah.
So I also asked you your favorite color, Bob, and you said blue. So why blue?
I don't know. I just really have always liked blue and all shades of blue too. I like the light blues to the dark blues, and I really just something about it really like draws me in. And the ocean is blue, so my eyes are green. I wish I had blue eyes, but I don't.
I got blue eyes.
Do you really?
Yeah. And that's what I kind of figured, because when you gave me blue, I was like water, the
Yeah.
ocean, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So the t-shirt that you're wearing is the cover of the book.
Yeah.
So why
Yeah.
those colors? Because I do see blue in the cover.
Yeah. Well, the blue is the sky, and I thought the blue and the yellow contrasted well off each other, and the color of the fish. So that's how it all came together. Yeah.
No,
Yeah. And
it
there's a
looks really
palm tree
sharp.
there
It's
too.
really sharp,
Yeah. Well.
right?
Yeah. Mm.
So, Bob, let's get into some hunting and fishing. What, like, you do the hunting, you do the fishing. Do you do any other kind of outdoor adventures?
Well, I've skied a couple of times when I was in Pennsylvania. I went skiing, which I enjoyed too. Um, that was a lot of fun, but mostly I did hunting. I've done ice skating, ice fishing, um, and who hasn't built a snowman and some sledding. Like you do a little bit of less of that when you get older, I guess. And here in Florida, they don't have as much of that. But there are outdoor things to do here too. They have kayaking and jet skiing, that kind of thing.
So, we have a question here. What is your favorite rod of all times?
I like Shimano. I like for offshore fishing. The Shimano's the reel is so smooth. I really enjoy fishing with the Shimano reels.
So, and you were saying something about poking a fish. So, do you have like a poker too that pokes the fish? Like, how does that work?
A poking a fish.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe what you're talking about is they have an air bladder. The bottom fish have an air bladder
Okay.
when they come up, and if you don't want to keep the fish if he's too small, you want to poke the air bladder to let the air out of the bladder so the fish can go back down to the bottom.
Oh.
Yeah, because if they're allowed to keep that air, they can't go down if that air is filled. The bladder is filled with air; they'll stay at the surface. So you
Oh.
want to poke a little hole so the air can get out, so he can go back down.
See, I never knew that.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you don't poke it, then the fish doesn't go back down?
Yeah, no, because he's filled with air, and the air won't let him go back down it keeps him floating at the
Oh.
top. Yeah.
Yeah, but you catch like swordfish and all those big fish like tunas and that. Like, is there like a dabber or something, like,
Well, a
or a
gaff.
hook? I think it's a hook.
It's called a gaff. Yeah, it's got a big hook at the end of it. It's called a gaff. And with big fish like that, sometimes you need two gaffs to get them in properly. One isn't enough. Yeah, I told the story how we gaffed that swordfish in the middle of the night, and it was dark, so we missed him at first, and it made him angry. But we were able to get him on. And boy, the swordfish. Have you ever had a swordfish steak?
No.
Swordfish steak is that's one of the best tasting fish, and their bodies are really thick. And when this fish came on the boat, it felt like you were dragging a box of concrete on the boat. They're really strong and sturdy, but they taste great. Swordfish steaks are the best.
So how do you catch it?
How do you catch a swordfish?
Yeah.
Well, we used to catch them at night. They're doing a lot of more daytime swordfish fishing these days. So what we used to do was we would put a little light on the line that looked about the size of a cigar, and then at the end of it put a little hook. And the reason for the light was so the fish would see the light and come over and investigate your bait. And because they have real big eyeballs, swordfish do, and those big eyeballs let a lot of light in. So they are attracted to the light, and then they come over and hopefully take your bait. They like squid. They like to feed on squid.
So have you ever caught a squid?
Well, with those, you catch them with nets and things like that. I've never been squid fishing though. It's the same with the shrimp. We catch shrimp with nets.
So have you ever done any of that fishing with nets?
I've never done. Well, we would catch bait fish with nets. But not squids and shrimp. Those are, you go offshore for those. The squids, and we would catch like cigar minnows and chofers and things like that. Pinfish, they call them. Sometimes or mullet. Sometimes we would use a net for that kind of thing.
So I did find when I did some research on you, Bob, that you were a professional college baseball player.
Not a professional. I was a college baseball player.
Oh, college.
Yeah, I played college baseball for a couple of years. Yeah.
So what did you like about baseball?
Well, again, the competition. I used to love to compete. When I was younger, and I loved competing in sports, and baseball I was pretty good at, so I was able to play college baseball. I'm not professionally though. I wasn't that good.
I was gonna throw a joke out there. Who's on first? Who's on?
Yeah. I don't know. That's on third. I do know that.
Right, that the never-ending baseball game.
Yeah.
So let's get into the inside tales of the readers. So you have this on your website where you have a bunch of, I'm guessing, people who have purchased the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they're leaving reviews for the book.
Yeah.
So what's one of your top 3 reviews that you?
I got a review. I got a review the other day that really meant a lot to me. The person who left the review said that my writing was a work of art, and I really loved hearing that. That was so nice. I've had a couple of. I had another review where the person said that they were fascinated by these stories and that they enjoyed sharing these stories with their kids, which made me feel good too. And so I've had several other ones like that. Some that people who aren't fisher people like the book because of the way that it's written. You don't necessarily have to like fishing to enjoy the book, which I purposely wrote it that way. So I would hope that people who weren't just fishermen could enjoy it.
So you threw a little bit of sense of humor in the book.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, I think it makes it easier as a reader too, right? Like you said, if they're not fishermen, then at the end of the time that they're done reading that book, they're going to be a fisherman.
Yeah. There's two that off the top of my head that I thought were kind of funny. I said about the one guy who took the beer to Cabo San Lucas that we talked about. I said he had more stories than Popeye the Sailor Man, but he didn't get his strength from spinach. He got it from the suds, like a lot of seamen. And then the other one was another buddy of ours. His name was Keith. Everywhere he would go, they would tell him, "Oh, you should have been here last week. Oh, they'll be coming through next week." What about right now? I'm here.
Yeah, I'm right here. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So on your website, I also found that you have some nautical sayings. So I want to go through them a little bit so you can explain what they mean.
Okay.
because some of them I read, I was like, oh, okay. So let's start with loose cannon.
Yeah, loose cannon was in fact, you know what? I'm gonna have to let me get to my website here real quick, and
I
because
get you to do your homework.
yeah, yeah, I just want to make sure I get it right.
Yeah, because you got some pretty good ones there.
Yeah. Okay. Nautical sayings. Yeah. All right. Loose cannon. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Loose cannon, it's associated with people who may act a little unpredictably, but in seafaring times, it was when the cannon would literally become loose on the ship from
Oh,
making it a loose cannon. Yeah, that's where that came from.
oh yeah, because they had cannons on the ships back then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my grandpa told me to be careful of the loose cannon.
Yeah.
And what's a square meal?
A square meal, they actually had square plates on the ships, and they were wooden ships, and they were always square. So that's where square meal comes from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot. And
Yeah.
pipe down.
Yeah. Pipe down was time to go to bed at night.
Oh,
Yeah. Once the lights went out, it was time to pipe down and go to sleep.
so put your pipe out and go to bed.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that smoke pipes.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore, but back then there was a lot of pipe smokers. Told a line.
Yeah. To the line. It's called toe the line when the crew was asked everybody to line up. It meant everybody like in unison is toe the line across the straight line. So they're all the
Also get all
toes
your ducks in a
following
row.
the line. Yeah.
So as a mom, we get all our kids in a row.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen too often, but we get those
Yeah.
ducks in a row, and then
Yeah.
we get one that falls off.
Yeah.
Okay, next we're gonna go with clean bill of health.
Yeah. Clean bill of health was when a ship would go to a port and before they were able to unload or load supplies, they would have to be given what they called a clean bill of health because there was a lot of disease and a lot of things that could be transmitted. Back in those days, they didn't have a lot of the disinfectants and things that we have now. So that's when your ship passed the inspection, you got a clean bill of health.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hands over fist.
Yeah, that was the sails. When they would raise the sails, means one hand over fist, and when you were raising the sail.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, but these are all sayings that would be said on a ship, right?
On a ship, yeah.
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 All hands on deck.
That means everybody, all the crew, all the officers, everybody was all hands on deck for whatever purpose they had at that time. It didn't matter, everybody was all together for whatever purpose they were doing.
And feeling under the weather.
Feeling under the weather was when it was rough. The captain, you'd have to, make the crew go inside and, so they would get out from under the weather.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
See, we're throwing a lot of education out there. So I think now is a good time to ask you, Bob, if I give you the word tea, what words would you give me tonight for the TEA?
Well, telling everyone a lot, which is what we have been doing, I hope.
We're getting a lot out there. So why those words?
Well, because, we have a lot to say, like the oceans, for most of the world history, most of our trade, most of our commerce, most of our everything was done from the oceans. So there's a lot to be learned out there. And that's where that comes from.
So why everyone?
Why everyone? Because I think, like I say, everyone can have a spiritual connection to the ocean. So it's something I think everyone can relate to on some level, even if they don't like to fish or even be on a boat. The ocean is the ocean.
And why a lot?
Because we're inclusive.
We're inclusive. Yeah. And there's a lot of fish in the water.
A lot of fish in the water, yeah.
We always go back to the fish.
Yeah.
So, Bob, you've also been featured on a lot of media release, NBC, ABC, CBS, Market Watch. So you've been interviewed for the book or for other things?
Well, for the book, yeah, yeah.
And how was your experience with that?
Well, I enjoy it. I always something. It's a subject that's near and dear to me, so I enjoy talking about it, and I enjoy whatever questions people might have, and if I'm able to help them in some way. And sometimes their questions help me because I don't know everything. Like I said, when I was writing the books, there were plenty of things that I learned that I didn't know.
Well, I think writing a book with researching, right? You learn new
Yeah,
things too, and then you're like, "Oh, I never knew that." So let me give that a try
yeah,
after this book is
yeah,
done.
yeah, yeah.
So, did you find something during your research time that you tried after writing the book?
What do you mean? What was that question?
Like, did you find anything with your research? Like, when you were doing research for the book, did you try like a new fishing habit or a new way of tossing or releasing?
Well, um, I know have a better understanding of where to go and what to look for from writing the book. Just on the thing I said about those currents, I thought, wow, this is amazing. So now I have a better understanding because fish, ocean fish like currents. The currents and the water temperatures and the salinity of the water and the oxygen levels and all that stuff. That's what drives them. They follow all those things. And, now I have a better understanding of their movements and things because of that.
So why are oceans? How do the oceans impact our lives every day?
Well, I think we get a lot of, like I said, we have a lot of commerce and trade still through our oceans. Ship liners and containers bring tons and tons of supplies all the time. And even recreational things like cruises. If you've ever been on a cruise, how much fun they can be when you're out on the water. And, when you're in the water, it's just you, the water, the ship, and the sun or the moon or the stars, and that's it. And I don't know, there's something very soul stirring about that to me.
So we have a question here for you, Bob.
Hmm.
What's the longest time you've been on the water?
In a row, well, probably I would say 3 or 4 days.
Oh,
Yeah, we used to do overnight trips where we would stay sometimes 3 or 4 days out there, and it's you usually catch a lot more fish that way, and you don't have to waste time traveling to your fishing spots as much. So yeah, like 3 or 4 days.
and where's your favorite fishing spot?
Well, that varies depending on, like I said, the tides and where the fish might be at a certain time. We used to try to find structures depending on the kind of fish that we're after, like the oil rigs in Louisiana. To keep, fish love that structure of those oil rigs, especially at night where the lights, they gravitate towards those lights. And if there's a nice push of nice, clean, warm water, pushing towards the rigs, it makes for some exciting times.
So what's your favorite time for fishing? Daytime, nighttime?
Oh, anytime.
Anytime.
Yeah,
A lot.
yeah, yeah. Usually, like on a day trip, you would leave like as soon as the sun came up, and then you'd come back when the sun came down. But there's certain fish that only will bite in the day, and there's certain ones that will bite both day and night. So it's depending on what you want to catch.
So when's your favorite time to go fishing?
When the spring is good, the fall is good, but and then in the wintertime you change and you catch other types of fish. At least in the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean. Oh, actually, in the Caribbean too, it just flip flops because a lot of those Caribbean fish come up north for the winter and then they go back, or come up north for the summer and then go back down in the winter. So usually in the warm months. I don't know how they do it up in there in Alaska, man. I don't know if that's a little cold for me.
Oh, you don't like the cold, do you?
Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and after you've been in Florida for a while, I mean, I remember going, it'd be 25 degrees out in Pennsylvania and it'd be out in a t-shirt. Now it's 60 degrees in Florida and I want to put a coat on. I know people from up north laugh, and I used to laugh too, but now I get it,
Yeah, I come from a northern town, and where I live now, the cold is completely different. And everyone's like, well, how cold was it back home? -52. Your
Oh,
eyes like,
wow. Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was cold. We had Eskimo kind of weather where I come from.
Hmm.
So I want to, we have another question here. What is the difference between regular fishing and sport fishing?
Recreational and sport fishing, they're more or less the same things. The recreational fishing, you can catch, groupers, snappers, bottom fish, king mackerels, that kind of thing. Sport fishing, usually sport fishing is a little bit more specified. Like when they say sport fish, they usually mean marlin, blue marlin, mahis, wahoos. Where recreational, they can it's a little broader, but it's basically the same thing.
So what's a fishing derby?
A fishing tournament, yeah, where you'll go out and they'll have different categories for different types of fish, and sometimes there's prizes to be won if you bring back the biggest fish in a certain category. Usually they have first, second, or third place in a certain category, depending on the size of the fish and the kind of boat you're on. Like they'll have prizes for party boats, which party boats can take up to 50 or 60 people, then charter boats, which is up to 6, and then private boats, which is your own private group.
So I'm guessing this person knows you because they want to know what derby you entered in that got you the biggest prize.
I did the Hemingway Days tournament one time in Key West. They have the Hemingway Festival every year, and we fished that tournament, and we didn't win. We weighed in a dolphin. I think it was good for like third place. It wasn't a huge payout, but it was all right. We'll take it. Anytime you could place a fish, that's a big deal.
And you said like some of these fishing derbies, they have like amazing prizes as well, right?
Some of them do, yeah. Some of them do. I haven't been fortunate enough to win any of those. Maybe someday.
So where would you find information on fishing derbies?
Well, anywhere. Like you could look online for marinas, and they have them in Virginia Beach and New Jersey. Maryland has them. Florida. Just look. You can Google North Carolina fishing tournaments, and then there's a whole bunch of information on all the tournaments they have.
So you have another section on your website called Fun Facts. So what's the Fun Facts about?
Okay, let me go to that one real quick. Fun facts. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, some fun facts about the oceans, which were amazing. Like the deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean is around Puerto Rico, and it's 27,480 feet deep. And it's only 3 miles, a few miles off the coast of Puerto Rico. Now, it's 3 miles less deep. The Mariana Trench in the Pacific is the deepest, water in anywhere. And you can fit like I don't know how many Empire State Buildings one on top of another, and it's still not even close to as deep as the Mariana Trench in the Philippines. Oh, wow. And then the Java Trench. There was one guy, James Cameron, the guy that did what movie did he do? The movie with Titanic. James Cameron had something to do with it. Yeah, he actually went down in a capsule down to the Mariana Trench. I think he's one of only 2 or 3 people that have ever gone all the way down there and then come back up. But yeah, he did it. And then the Java Trench, which off the northwest coast of Australia, is almost 24,000 feet deep. Another fun fact is that fish do sleep. Most fish do sleep. They don't have eyelids, so what they do, they don't close their eyes, but they will crevice up in a hole or something, and they'll go in like a deep meditative state, which is their way of sleeping. Oh. And yeah. And the saltwater fish do need to drink water, as freshwater fish don't, which was another interesting thing that I learned. Yeah.
So how would they drink water if they're in the water?
I know they have. I guess they have a filtering system that dissolves the salt and is able to purify their intestines and stuff with the fresh water. How cool is that, huh?
That is cool.
Yeah,
they're already in the water.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, and it says here, and I didn't know this either. Fish can drown. It says they dissolve oxygen from it. They need a constant flow of oxygen flowing through their gills to keep from drowning.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I would have never thought they'd drown.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Nature's amazing.
It is, right? You just
Yeah,
never know what
yeah.
it could do.
Daytime fishes have better vision than we do. They can see lights and stuff that we humans cannot. Yeah, yeah. And then the nighttime fishes, they see better in the dark than we do. Yeah. There's some interesting things that are individual to the fish, like the hammerhead shark, for example. They use that hammerhead. They go along the bottom, and they pick up electrical impulses from fish that might be buried in the sand, and that's how they know they're there, so they can feed on them.
That's that one with the flat nose, right?
Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
the big long flat nose. Yeah, the hammerhead shark. Yeah.
So have you ever caught a shark?
Oh yeah, a bunch of them. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I usually some people love shark fishing. To me, I'd rather catch dolphins and wahoos and tunas than sharks. But yeah, we've caught a bunch of sharks. We caught a bull shark one time we thought was a tuna, and we let him go, you know. And we've caught some hammerheads and tiger sharks and things like that.
You said you caught a dolphin?
Mahi. Not well. Actually, I did hook a porpoise one time, but he came off. Thankfully, you know, I don't want to catch a dolphin. You know, when I say dolphin, I mean the dolphin fish, the mahi.
Yeah. We want to make sure that we got the right dolphin here.
Yeah.
So, Bob, I want to thank you for joining me tonight on Tea Time. Any final words that you'd like to get out there about the book and how people can reach you to have you on their show as well?
Well, you can reach me at my email, Bob Gonzalez with a Z, Bob Gonzalez 492 at gmail.com. Or you can go to my website and you can email me through there. There's a little icon there that will allow you to email me. And I'd certainly love to do your show if you want to have me.
So, and you can find you on all social media platforms as well, correct?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Flicker in the Water, Instagram, I'm on Facebook, Bob Gonzalez, or A Flicker in the Water also. You can find me at all those. The best place to get my one-stop shop, though, is my website, flickerinthewater.com.
Well, there you go. So if anybody wants to reach you, you can go to the website. And before we wrap up your tea time, Bob, I want to ask you, where can we get these books?
They're on Amazon. They're on Barnes & Noble. You can get them at any of your local bookstores, too. If you ask for A Flicker in the Water, they can order it for you. Or anywhere online where books are sold, or through my website as well.
And if anybody would like to have you speak, they can reach you on the website again, right?
Yes.
So we want to open up some doors for the schools, for the aquariums. There's a lot of cool aquariums in Canada. You should come to in Canada. Niagara Falls has a really good one too.
Yeah, I would love to do it.
Marineland would be cool.
Yeah, if they want me, I'll go.
You just never know what door might open.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you again. I want to thank all the listeners and all of the people that have joined us tonight with questions. I really appreciate that. I appreciate the support, and keep those questions coming in. I kind of like how you guys are doing this. You guys are sending Miss Liz all these questions, and it's just kind of popping it up. So we keep the space open, and we make sure that we keep it clean and safe for everybody, that we don't get no bots, no trolls. We don't get no bottom feeders. You know, we get the good stuff. So any final words before we wrap up, Bob?
Well, yeah, Liz, thanks a lot for having me on here. I really appreciate it, and I really enjoyed it as well, too. And I hope the audience did, too.
Well, thank you so much. And again, we will see everybody next Thursday. 3 shows again. This is how it rolls. And this afternoon's tea time has been rescheduled for March 21st. So be sure to check that one out. That is not a Thursday, so that is a rescheduled tea time. All tea times this year will be done on Thursdays. Any rescheduled tea times will be done either on a Monday or a Tuesday. So tune in for that. And all the times for tea times this year is 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 7 p.m. And again, Bob, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And thank you for everyone who tunes in and supports Miss Liz. Let's just keep sharing these tea times, and let's make a difference. And let's really spill and make a mess of a big old pot of tea here. Because that's what we do, is we spill tea, we make a difference, and we teach educational awareness. So thank you all. And I will see everybody Thursday. Oh, no, I won't see everybody Thursday. I'll see everybody Tuesday and then Thursday, because we have 2 rescheduled tea times on Tuesday. So be sure to check that out. That'll be all posted on the Miss Liz's Facebook page. And Bob's full bio is on Miss Liz's Facebook page. So check that out. And I'll see everybody on Tuesday for a rescheduled tea time. So again, thank you, Bob. Don't leave. I'm just going to wrap up.
Okay. Thank you, Liz.